Well, thank you so much for joining us, Bex, on our Lead the Charge video series. If you could just start by, first of all, just giving us a bit about your background, how you come into the world of EV, and all that fun stuff.
Sure. So I usually start these things by saying that I'm actually not in the automotive industry, because I don't really feel like I completely am. But having said that, I actually do have a bit of an automotive background. So I used to work at Aston Martin for a while. Obviously that is not representative of your everyday car or your everyday automotive manufacturer. But so I do know a little bit about that. And then I have done lots of work with kind of consumer events and things like Carfest. I've done lots of work with, I guess, definitely the B2C side of all things cars. So whereas I say that I'm not necessarily in the automotive industry, I haven't sort of grown up and cut my teeth in it. It's something that I guess I've got quite a lot of experience of. Now I seem to be in it more than I've ever been before.
In the thick of it, I mean, Aston Martin, great company to work with, though, I suppose. But which kind of brings me really to the, you're saying in it more than you've ever been before. I guess the big question is, what inspired you to really come into this space and focus really on, I mean, we'll talk about She's Electric, but focus on empowering women within this space. And yeah, if you can just tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So I have a marketing agency called Still Curious that I've had for about 5 or 6 years. And through by accident, it definitely wasn't on purpose, but we had an entirely female team. And we were working in a lot of in a lot of industries where it's quite traditionally male dominated. So I don't know, whether it be construction or innovation or technology, future of mobility. We did quite a lot of work with sort of, much larger vehicles like buses and all sorts of things. And as I say, we all had this kind of quite strong consumer events background, and obviously marketing and sort of that kind of thing. And we were actually up at an event in Scotland, up in Edinburgh, and a taxi driver came to pick up one of my colleagues, and he was like, "I'm here to pick up someone from Still Furious," and obviously we were called Still Curious, not Still Furious. But at the time, we were all like, "Oh, that's actually a really good name," and it got everyone thinking about like things that we as a collective were still kind of furious about. And obviously a lot of things to do that is about where there's that imbalance between the genders. So we were sort of looking at different areas, industries, places that we knew, or problems that we were aware of. And automotive obviously came up because of a lot of our backgrounds. My business partner at the time was big in she did a lot of the Top Gear Live stuff, so we all had a fair old idea of how the automotive industry was or wasn't working for women. And at the time, so we kind of thought, well, look, there's definitely an issue here about how traditionally women have been engaged when it comes to cars. And it was probably a couple of years ago now, and Erin Baker had just released, or just about to release, her No Driver Left Behind campaign, the research that had come off the back of that. And a colleague of mine knew her well. We ended up having a conversation, and we were like, "Well, there might be something that we can do something about." And our idea was basically around communicating with women in places and spaces that they kind of want to be, because as the data showed, and it's not that surprising, women didn't really want to be spending their Saturday and Sunday mornings at a dealership, and there was still a lot of bad experiences
Yeah.
on that kind of like that retail side of things. So we thought, can we help in some way?
So aside from your Still Curious and Still Furious, that side, what was the driving force behind She's Electric then, and making something to empower women and bring women into the electric side?
So there's a lot of data out there that shows that on the whole, and obviously we're talking in like massive generalized terms here, on the whole, women are a bit more sustainable than men when they're making their kind of everyday decisions. Apart from when it comes to electric vehicles, clean energy, some of the really big decisions that have got the biggest impact. So for me, that kind of seems nuts. I mean, it's all great that we've all got reusable coffee cups, but actually, we're not being given the information we need to make those big decisions. Like, knowledge is power. And I think the way that people have talked about cars and driving in the past is has suited a certain type of car purchaser, which was fine when, you know, women weren't buying cars in the same way we are now. And also women's spending power is just increasing year on year. We're 51% of the population. So I think it was just, for us, it just felt like it was about time that conversation, you know,
Yeah.
a lot of us, I speak for myself here. I have worked in the automotive industry. I've not, by any stretch of imagination, a car. Now, I have bought the same car 3 times in a row in exactly the same colour. I'm a single mum. I'm really busy. I haven't got time. It's not a passion of mine. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've, you know, as I say, driven lots of sports cars very fast, and that's all really good fun. But at the end of the day, I use my car to go to and from the school run and go to the supermarket or whatever. I don't think I even do that, to be honest. But so, you know, you kind of, but so for me, it's a necessity. And I felt like no one was actually talking to me about the things I really needed to know when it came to buying a car. And so we just thought, well, if that's how we feel, and that's probably how a lot of other women feel as well. And on the whole, the women that we engage with, you know, they are not going to car events. They're not wanting to go down to a showroom. They sort of, you know, it's something that is a statement, you know, about, you know, who they are, and in the same way that,
Yeah.
you know, the lifestyle purchase would be, but they just probably interested in slightly different things. And for a lot of them, first time in an EV, and possibly also first time at any kind of car event at all. It's about making it fun.
Yeah, great. I mean, it's funny you said about the lifestyle thing, because I think buying a car is becoming very much that process. Buying a car is, you know, it's checked. The way people buy cars has changed a lot. Like we used to do lifestyle selling. The way we'd sell cars, we'd have lifestyle events, and we'd have Tesla change their model. I spent a lot of time at Tesla, and they wanted us to have like the bike racks on the back in the showrooms with or like the tents on the top, the tent boxes, and all that kind of stuff, to try and make it more lifestyle and make it more like, well, actually, has this car going to be in your life, rather than is it fast? What's technologies in it? You know, actually buying for lifestyle. You know, that being said, I mean, what are the key initiatives or events that She's Electric is focusing on within that space, then, to kind of engage those women and bring those women in, and and give put that in women's hands. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So we have done 12 events actually in the last year or so, and these ones have all been quite similar in terms of the audience. So it's very much B2C. It is, you know, it's on a Saturday or a Sunday. Come along for 3 or 4 hours, and we have like three, I guess, pillars of content within each of those. Your first one is all about that, you know, big sustainability decisions. So it is about driving electric. It's about everything associated with that. So, you know, where's your energy coming from? Like, how are you going to charge the car? Because I think that is obviously the difference. You know, when you're going and changing from ICE into EV, you're not just buying a car, you're actually changing your lifestyle quite significantly on the way you
Yeah.
think about things. So there's obviously a lot of questions around that, and nobody wants to change really. Like everyone's, you know, they're quite happy with the familiar, and that, you know, they know where they're at
Yeah.
with things. So it's a lot of explaining, and a lot of basically showing really that, if so and so can do it, I can do it. And that's another thing about the female purchasing journey, is that we don't consume information typically quite in the same way. Like, we rely a lot more on friends and family. So when you look at, like, you know, who women trust when it comes to making that automotive purchase, unfortunately they don't trust dealerships. I mean, the stats are similar for guys and for women, but that, you know, just the gap's a bit bigger. But they don't necessarily trust the automotive manufacturers themselves. And I think because of all the sort of information or misinformation in some cases in the media, there's just a lot of myths out there, a lot of confusion. So what we offer in relation to that kind of particular pillar is a bit of a safe space, really. So you can kind of put your hand up and you can say, look, give it me straight, Erin Baker, how much should it cost you to charge your car to get here last night? And she'll tell you, and she'll say, this is what I did, and I'm on this tariff, and this is how it works, and it was pretty easy, I did this. But also, we're really quite honest about stuff as well. So it's not a case of pretending it's some sort of utopia. You know, it's about saying,
Yeah.
well, if you haven't got a driveway, it could be at times, you know, a bit more problematic. It's a bit more expensive to do. So for me, it's about being really honest, and then letting people make the decision. People may walk away from a She's Electric event and go, do you know what? It's not for me right now. I've got a small kid. I don't have a driveway. It's too, whatever it might be. So there's that. We also do a lot of talk about sustainability in general. So we have a lot of incredible sustainable lifestyle brands. Again, they're like just really amazing female founders usually, or typically quite innovative products, but showing that you don't have to sacrifice staff for sustainability. There's some amazing cool innovations out there right now that everyone should know about. And then also there's the female empowerment side of things as well, because at the root of all this is making sure that every single woman has all the information that she knows to make the right decisions
Yeah.
for herself and her family. So those events that we've been doing, come along, nice bit of something to eat and drink, come along and take a test drive, bring a mate. There's no salespeople. You have a giggle. We've got some incredible footage of women just really having a laugh in a car, and everyone's sort of like, women don't like doing test drives. Well, actually, if you take away all that pressure and stuff, it's great. I've got some great stuff of people finding out all different tech when they're in these cars. And yeah. That's
And there is a lot of pressure around buying a car, isn't there? Especially when you go into most dealerships, there is a pressure there, because you go in, the person's earning commission, and they're going to say everything you want to hear.
Yeah.
And it's just having, as you said, those honest and open conversations, and that's something we try to do with our customers all the time, especially before commission. Like there was no commission involved, so it was the conversations were open and they were honest. And we found a lot of women who did come in said, when I was in this dealership or this dealership, they only really spoke to my husband and they didn't really look at me.
Yeah, that's remarkable that is still a problem, but it is still a problem. So I think that there are some, I get a bit carried away with all the kind of like, what can we do with the digital journey to sort of, to look at different people's purchase types, and how can we think about how a woman might be thinking differently? But actually, if we haven't nailed the fact that you actually need to speak to a woman when she walks into the front door, I'm probably jumping ahead a little bit. That isn't, obviously it is getting much better, and I think the more diverse teams we have in dealerships, the better it will be, because often the woman, if she isn't actually doing the purchasing, she's got a lot of that kind of she'll be swaying the decision in one way or another. So I think it's really important to sort of acknowledge that the different things that she might be thinking about when it comes to buying a car.
There are pros and cons to absolutely everything. We can't say that having an EV is 100% plain sailing. I've had some bad days. Most days are great. I've been in an EV for 3.5 years, been in the EV world for about 6. Majority of it is great, but there are some hardships. There are people who will struggle more than others. And even being honest about that, because otherwise you put someone in EV, they become incredibly frustrated. One, because either they don't have all the information, or two, they've been completely missold and they've been sold a dream when actually it isn't just a fuel type change. It's a lifestyle change, as you said.
Yeah.
And people need to be aware of that. And if people aren't aware of that, that's where the frustrations come in and where the frustrations lie. So,
and it is really difficult for retailers, because obviously, you do want to make that sale. You want to make sure that, someone is driving away in the product that you're in charge of selling. But at the same time, that purchase funnel there's just a few more layers to it. And I think that, expecting somebody who is completely new to EV to walk into a showroom and then just walk away knowing everything they possibly want to know, but, about an entirely new technology, it's never going to be the way it was. And I assume, I've been a salesperson. I've never been a car salesperson though. But I assume selling an ICE vehicle is just so much easier because it is like for like. Whereas when you're trying to sell EV, there are just a few more steps. And I don't know whether that's been fully acknowledged by everybody, that there are more steps to converting that person. But we're going to have to do it. And whether those steps all take place in that dealership, or whether steps 1, 2, and 3 take place somewhere else, where you can, persuade someone that EV is doable. And then once they've decided that EV is doable, they can look into exactly how they do that. Jury out on that one. I'm sure there are some people who can do that entire funnel in 45 minutes, but I expect they're few and far between.
Spot on. I mean, exactly what you said. There are more steps. And sadly, I've seen it way too many times where people just have been failed, and then they're scared of EV in general, and they're just like, this doesn't work, or this doesn't, providing you do it right, you can make it work. There's lots of myths out there, just within your sphere and the world that you're in, and among your groups. What would you say is the most common myth that you come across?
On the myth side of things, the one about cars spontaneously combusting does come up quite a lot. Are they more flammable, all that sort of thing, which I can't. If Erin was here, she would quote you the actual data that tells you why it's not and where it's from and who did it. But that's simply not the case. There's also, I think we kind of call it, it's been called range anxiety over the years, and it's probably sort of more battery anxiety in general. So on the range side, it's like, will I get to my destination with? And I think what happens there is people sort of overestimate how much range they would actually need, and what the average is. And obviously, if you are traveling to and from Land's End to John O'Groats every week, electric might not be for you right at this moment in time. However, not many people are really doing that. Most people are doing kind of 30 miles a week or whatever. So there's that. And the battery side of things, I think, because there is a bit of a familiarity thing. So although I'm pretty sure that there are very few people in a She's Electric event that would actually be able to go and fix an engine, in our heads we kind of feel like we sort of understand an engine. We sort of get the fact that it feels more fixable, it feels more familiar. Battery and all the sort of technology that goes along with it seems like such a technology that's so far away from us, and everything in this day and age for us all feels like it's becoming less like something we're going to be able to understand ourselves. So when it comes to a sort of catastrophic failure with a battery, we get sort of more panicky about this than we think when we think about any kind of issue with an engine. And I think there's that idea that as soon as you drive away, your battery's capacity is going to reduce by 50%. Your residual values are going to go down so dramatically. And I think there is just, as I say, there is just so much. It is a mixture of misinformation, but also the technology is changing so quickly. So one thing that was 24 months ago is completely the opposite now, and that is really hard to keep on top of if you are just a consumer without a passion for automotive. It's a necessity rather than perhaps a strong desire to have the latest technology.
Yeah, that's it. With EVs, it's just where it is so fresh, as you said, and it is. People have that concern because it's something that's brand new and it's fresh and it's adapting so quickly. It's a bit like the phones, how quickly they change. Your phone feels outdated the next year when the new one comes out. And a lot of people have that concern with the new technology. It's constantly changing. Batteries from 2 years ago are not the same as the batteries now. Batteries that are coming are not going to be. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's people treading into a whole new world and being so unfamiliar with what's around them. Totally right.
We do quite a lot of research and insight work, both sort of digitally in terms of a quant way, and then we also do like focus groups and events to find out a little bit more information that sort of go a bit deeper really and understand some of the drivers, the barriers and the blockers. And we find out some really interesting stuff from our audience. The one that came up last time was this idea of EV smugness. So sometimes women don't want to buy, so obviously a Tesla is very obviously electric. Some women, they don't want to be virtue signaling with their car. They want something that's a bit more subtle. They don't be around going like, hey, look at me, I'm so sustainable. And they look at, sometimes some of our non-EV drivers were looking at EV drivers and going like, oh yeah, there they are, the EV elite, because obviously there's the idea of EVs being, something that you can't afford. So there's all this sort of interesting stuff. Another one is like people actually wanting cars to look like cars and feel like cars. Like, I want a key. I don't want a card. Don't forget that our audiences range probably from, I'd say, obviously we get all ages, but the majority sort of 35 probably to 60, 55, 60.
Yeah.
And you get people saying, like, I want my car to give me a warm hug. I don't want this sort of, and the idea of that is that whenever I go and do a test drive, obviously you get a lot of product specialists that go across the brands. You'll get into a car and they'll go like, isn't it amazing? It's like a spaceship. And I'm always like, I don't want
to. If I had a pound every time I heard that.
I know, that's it. But look at your audience. Like, do I look like I want to drive a spaceship to Lidl? No, I just want to drive a car to Lidl. The other one that I get as well is when you see like a nervous sort of lady getting into a car and someone goes like, oh, don't worry, it's just like driving a go-kart. And I'm always like, again, do I look like someone that has driven many, many go-karts? But it's just little things like that just make you feel like, it's sort of read the room, read me. And I think that it just comes through in our research all the time that, women are just sort of, not obviously there's a million different needs and wants. There's not just one type of woman or one type of thing, but I think we're at the age, and with the kind of technology we have now, that we have to be able to acknowledge different purchase journeys and different needs and things like that.
Yeah. It's just so funny you said those two phrases, because that's probably, during my time in Tesla, probably two of the most common things I ever heard. Literally, just I heard that every single day without fail.
I'll tell you a quick Tesla story, which is my first ever time in an EV. And I'd gone to visit a friend. So I hadn't actually been in an EV until I was considering starting She's Electric. So I wasn't already an EV advocate. I wasn't driving EV. So it doesn't come from that. It comes from more the confusion that I was feeling with the consideration of the purchase. That's, it's always, when you create something, or, when you do something entrepreneurial, usually you see a gap, don't you? And you think, well, I can fill that. But I went for lunch with a friend of mine, and we went somewhere very posh. We went to Soho Farmhouse, which obviously is full of very cool people, and not as many as maybe middle-aged people like me and my friend. And we were there having lunch, and I was telling her about this idea for She's Electric, and she was like, have you ever been in a Tesla? I was like, nah, I haven't actually. And she was like, well, that's what I drive. She was like, I've got something like to show you. Something like really important. I was like, okay, we're going to get in here. I'm going to see some tech that I don't understand, or it's going to be something about regenerative braking, and I don't know. Anyway, so we get in the car park of Soho Farmhouse, like, two cool people that we are. And she basically had set the indicators for fart noises. So basically, we're going round and round the Soho Farmhouse car park, like tears streaming down our face with the fart noise on the Tesla. And I just thought, if someone had told me that this is how I would experience EV, it's obviously a very extreme story. But that was my first, and I didn't really look at anything else. I thought, isn't that funny? And it can do disco dancing and all these little things. And, there are some really funny stories like that, I guess, maybe it sort of gets buried underneath all the kind of like sleek automotive sales pitches.
Yeah,
yeah, that was
and not your typical story either. Like, not the typical thing you'd hear about a car.
Made me think that, the way that we talk about it, it's all incredibly serious, and, this, that, and the other. And actually, sometimes especially, again, if you're talking to women, you're talking to mothers, you're talking to people who are really time poor, you're talking about, you've got to come spend 4 hours looking at different cars. They're like, oh. But if you say, come along to She's Electric, you're going to have a really fun time. There's a lot of laughter, a lot of giggles, a lot about, female empowerment. You're going to learn some stuff, and actually what we've done is just create that kind of joy. Obviously, everyone isn't driving around with the indicator on listening to fart noises. That's not She's Electric event, to be
It sounds like a great event that you guys have, yeah.
Maybe we should have just done that. That would have saved me a lot of bother if we'd have just done that from the very start. But it's about bringing that joy, that laughter, that fun into something which, for some reason, particularly over the last sort of, I don't know, a few decades, has become a pain point for women. I mean, some of the research that Erin did, women were saying things like, I'd rather buy a fridge. That's sad. Your fridges are, they're not fun. We should be having as much fun, with these purchases and with this research as anyone else.
Yeah, for sure. And it's such a big purchase as well, right? They say it's the second biggest purchase you'll ever make in your life. So it should be fun. It should be enjoyable. And I think bringing that enjoyment back into it is super important. And it's memorable. That's something that you're probably never going to forget. It's probably a story you've told countless times. I can't imagine how many times you've told that story. And it's, it's a great one. It puts a smile on people's faces, and it's something that people remember. And it's contagious. People want to be part of that. People want to have their own excitement and their own journey. So, just on the back of that then, if I'd just ask, in terms of EVs, if there's, women who are looking to purchase their first EV or come into the world of EV or anything around EV, what advice would you give them if this is something they're on the fence with and they're not sure about? What would be your advice?
Well, obviously, the first thing would be sign up to the She's Electric newsletter and follow socials. That's I think it's to be like open to learning and to see it as a lifestyle purchase, to actually really get excited about the new technology. And I think that it sort of all dovetails into a much bigger thing where there is so much going on in tech right now. We're going, from a car space, we're talking about connected cars. Yeah. I was at a conference where I was seeing one of a new model of car that was telling its driver, which restaurant to go to because it had enjoyed it last time, and don't worry, I'll tell the rest of your team members where to park, and all that sort of stuff that we sometimes look at and are like, oh my god, that's terrifying. But actually, I think my advice is like lean in, because there are some amazing things happening. And it is difficult because even now in the industry that I'm sort of accidentally working in, I still get confused by how a lot of these technologies intertwine. But I'd say just lean into that, because I reckon it can actually help our busy lives. And I think there's some positives in that.
Yeah, I mean, and saying that, we spend so much time in the car.
Mm.
We spend for well, depending on who you are, but lots of people, me included, spend so many hours in the car, and to have your car be able to put that technology into the car and your car integrate with your life
Yeah.
is incredible. Like, what an amazing thing that your cars will be able to either recommend or let other people know, and like that's so exciting. It feels like we're living in the future. Like when we're seeing those things, actually, it's starting to come to fruition.
It
Things are starting to change.
Yeah, I feel like we had that like 10 or 20 years where everyone was like, I thought we'd be riding hoverboards by now, and everyone was like, we're not really in the future, are we? And I don't know why, but maybe in the past sort of, I don't know, 2 to 5 years, it sort of does feel like the future has
Yeah,
suddenly put its foot on the pedal. That's probably a bad analogy. And we are actually like, seeing these things, particularly obviously with things like AI and how that's impacting how we all will live our lives. But yeah, I just think there's a lot of opportunity, and I think that I suppose that one can't happen without the other. So on the outside of the industry, it's going to be very hard for women to really feel included unless women are being represented on the inside of the industry. And I know that that's obviously a challenge that is far bigger than me. But looking at who's designing these cars, who's in the room when you're making decisions, because and it's not just about men and women. It's about everyone from diverse walks of life.
yeah,
It's so important, because you have to have that that mixture of needs and wants and desires in a room to get the right output for everybody. I think that's super important.
yeah, for sure. Awesome. So just lastly, I can't believe where the time's gone. To be honest with you, um, just lastly, then, as someone who's so deeply involved with what you guys are doing with sustainability with electric vehicles, if you could leave one message to anyone who's going to listen to this, whether it be women in women considering this change, or whether it be men or buyers, sellers, anyone who's listening, regarding the future of electric vehicles and the direction of travel that we're currently heading in.
Ooh, I would have said about the tech thing, but I've already touched on that. So I'm going to say, if there's one thing, I think it's actually to the guys. I think it's about allyship, and it's about women. She's electric. I often get asked like, why is it not he's electric or they're electric or everyone's electric? And the only reason she's electric is because there is a lot of data that shows that there is an issue. There's a lot of data that shows that women are not engaging in the same way or buying in the same way. There's a big old gap. If you should look at the stats from the States, it's even worse over there. It's just bonkers. I think it's something like 70% of men are thinking that the next car might be an EV versus like 30% of women, or something just the gap is far too big. So I think for me, it's about actually speaking to the guys in the automotive industry, and actually the importance of allyship and the importance of seeing it as, get involved, like make sure that the women in your organization have got a voice.
Love that.
Make sure, yeah. I just think it's. I know it can seem sometimes like we're all these kind of like crazed feminists banging a drum, and it's sort of like anti-men, no men at She's Electric. That's not the case at all. I mean, we have women who are bringing their husbands along, and that's amazing. And I think it needs to be a problem that everyone sorts out. Women can't just go away on their own and solve an entire 100 years worth of kind of crazy messaging and buy this car and you'll get the girl. We've moved on, and I think guys have got a huge part to play in kind of correcting.
Well, I think that's great. I mean, it's creating a safe space for some people as well, because some women may not feel that they have a space, and sometimes you guys, you need that. And I think it's great what you guys are doing. As you said, it does involve everyone, but it's great to have that space for women who might be a bit worried to find it elsewhere. But listen, we really appreciate you coming on and spending time with us. Thank you so much for your time, and we can't wait for people to be able to listen to this and hear this. So thank you so much for joining us.
Cool. Thank you very much.